always second everything to Nibbana. And achieving this in his mind, in his or her mind, the person would always want Nibbana. But this doesn't mean that he or she would totally abandon every mundane activity he or she was doing before. For example, the person would still enjoy a movie, but not because he or she thinks that there's something valuable, something full of essence in watching or listening to outside external data or items. It's because the person is used to it and he or she knows that the body and the mind is in vexation looking for these kinds of data, outside objects, external organs, we call images, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, and thoughts. Those are the things that we pursue after. So the person will look for these things still after understanding what's the reality. But the person will know that this is a pointless attempt in finding happiness because he knows now how to achieve the real happiness. So the wrong habits or habits that are not aligning with the Arya pathway would slowly get away from his life, and it's basically a cleansing process. The unusual, unwanted habits would be removed from one's life when the wisdom develops to its maximum. When it is at the maximum, all the unwanted habits of a person, which are basically pursuing after these external objects, would stop and would come to a halt, and that person's life would be only and the person's life, in the person's life, that person would only look for one thing, and that is Nibbana. And that is the end of life, where he would attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana, where there are no feelings, no images, no sounds, no smells, tastes, touches, thoughts, and also no eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and a mind. So to go there, first what we should have is the understanding about what's Anicca, what's Dukkha, and what's Anatta. So let's focus on what's Anicca, Dukkha, and Anatta. In the first day of this discussion, or the beginning of this discussion, we looked at a way how we could look at this world differently according to Dhamma, from the eyes of Dhamma, from the eyes of wisdom, how we can look at this world in a different perspective, where we understood that we are just going after neutral things. Outside items are always neutral. So we understood that when we want to buy a outfit, it's our mind that becomes deficient, so that the outfit becomes appealing to us. Or in our mind, we create a vexation, so that we need to buy that outside object, which is always neutral. That's why it's not the same for two different people. Someone would like the dress. Another person would not like it. It's different from person to person because it's not something in the dress. It's something in our mind that's why we see it as something that we need. So that's what the main idea was about when we're discussing it in the first discussion. So today we look at several different ways how we can see Anicca, Dukkha and Anatta. So in this journey of life, even we are in different countries, what we always try to do is we try to go after these external objects. So we have 2 eyes, 2 ears, nose, a tongue, mainly the biggest organ in our body, which is the skin, which we use to get touch, and our mind, which we process our thoughts. So other than these 6 internal organs, we cannot name one single organ which a living being would possess. So these are, if we compile these 6 together, that's a whole living being. So this living being always go after images, sounds, smells, touches, tastes, and thoughts. So think about our lives. We were looking at things. We were listening to things. We were feeling smells, tastes, and touches. We were thinking all this time from our birth to up until now. And think about how we were not able to fulfill any of these items, internal items. So by referring to I am referring to the mindset or the mental component, which is aligned with the physical eye or physical act of looking. So when it comes to hearing also, it's the mental component of the hearing I'm referring to. And for the other organs as well, it's the same. So I'll for reference purposes, we'll call it eye, we'll call it ears. So when it comes to eyes, we haven't been able to fulfill our eye, even at least 1%. So let's say we were watching movies. Someone would watch movies. Someone would watch dramas. And others would love to watch a play or a dance, whatever the thing it is. We have been watching. We have been spending money to please our eyes. And let's say we have 100% to please. So we started at 0%. And today, if we were able to at least fulfill it by 1%, then tomorrow we will have only 99% to be fulfilled. So with time, this number would reduce, and finally there would be a day that you will decide that you don't want to watch anymore because you have fulfilled your eyes or fulfilled your vexation of watching. But a day like that never comes. Even 1% would not be fulfilled. But what happens is the vexation grows more and more when you give food. Food is the images. When you give images to get rid of the vexation, what happens is it asks for more. It's like you have a bucket. So the best analogy you can give for this kind of a scenario is you can compare this inside or internal organs to an ocean. However much water comes to an ocean, it doesn't fill up. It doesn't overflow. That's the nature of an ocean. It's limitless in the sense that it cannot be filled. So our eyes are like an ocean. Our ears are like an ocean. Our nose and the tongue and our skin and our mind. So everything finally comes to the mind. Even if there are images which are taken up by the eyes, then ultimately come to the mind. And this is true for ears as well. And nose, tongue, and body as well. So this mental vexation or craving to please these insatiable internal organs can never be fulfilled. But in fact, what happens is the craving start to increase. So what you would do is you would earn more. You would try harder. You would do everything that is possible, making your life more complex and more complex. Yeah. And because the life is more complex, now it's just a run. It's just like running. There's no calm, quiet, peaceful environment. So we can give an analogy here. So we can compare this eyes, ears, and the other internal organs to a bucket with holes under it. So if there are holes in a bucket, however much we try to fill it up, the water will go out of these holes and the bucket will be empty. So our eyes are like a bucket. So we are trying to fill it up, and that's our ignorance. That's our avidya. We think that this can be fulfilled. We think that it can give pleasure. It can give bliss. And we don't like the bliss to go away. But that's exactly what happens. You put water to the bucket, and from the second you put it, the water level would go down. And let's say water level going up is taken up as blissful. That's what you want. That's what you like. That's what you are going to do always. You are trying to put water to that bucket so that water level will go up. But as soon as you stop trying to put water to that bucket, the water level would go down, and that's not blissful. That's the opposite of blissful, and that's suffering. And you don't like that kind of a vexatious feeling. So you try harder. You put more water, thinking that it can be fulfilled. It can be the thirst can be quenched. So that's what you think. And you put more water into that bucket. And there's an interesting phenomenon that happens when this kind of a thing goes on. The holes of this bucket would start to increase in size. So this, if you have an experience, if you know how our body works, you know how an alcoholic person or a person who is used to using drugs, but what's happening to his body? He would start to develop tolerance, and the amount of pleasure that is given by the same amount of alcohol or whatever the substance it is, when the time passes, when you are used to it, you cannot get the same pleasure from the same amount. So you have to increase the amount. So that's what happens. The holes that are in the bucket would start to increase in size, and the water will go out more rapidly. So the work that is needed to be done in order to keep you satisfied or give that blissful feeling, the workload would be much higher than before. And this would increase and increase to the point, or if you are referring to a person who is using substances. So he would go to a point that he is not feeling blissful with that substance anymore, so that he would have to change to a more stronger substance to get that physical pleasure. So isn't that what's happening to us as well? So think about your life. So initially, when you were small, you were happy with a small toy or a doll. You were happy with a small car, a toy car, which could give you happiness. But you had to initiate, and you had to use these toys and play with it. That's the only way you can generate this pleasure. So that's how you put water into the bucket. And as soon as you stop playing with it, the pleasure is gone. Now you have to play more and more, and again. That is to be stimulated and to generate that pleasure again and again. So you try to do it again and again. And after some time, you don't want to play with that toy anymore. Because however much you try, all the water that you put in goes out of the bucket as soon as you put it in. So you start to feel the physical pain or the exertion or the amount of work force that you have to put in order to get a very small gain of pleasure. So you don't find it pleasurable anymore. So you need a bigger, a better toy now. So you ask for a better toy. You ask for a better version of it. You ask for something that you haven't start to use anymore. So when you buy it, buy a new one, buy a new toy. So now that's a new one. So the story starts to repeat again, and you would start to play with it again, and still that thing won't be able to keep you satisfied. But in the meantime, you become old. So the things that you like and you don't like changes because of peers, because of media, and because of some hormonal and bodily changes as well. So when that changes, you start to shift your interests from one to another, and still you don't find it. You haven't find a single object that can keep you satisfied over the time, which doesn't fall into that analogy. All of the items we have been using, whatever it is, whether it's a image, whether it's a sound, and so on, always it comes to a point where you don't want to use it anymore. Think about your phone. So on the first day you bought your phone, even looking at it was blissful. Even touching it was blissful. Now after some time, you just toss it over to the bed. You don't care whether it falls from the bed and breaks the display. So that's what happens after some time. But when you buy the newest version, then that story starts to repeat all over again. So that's what happens. So this is the usual nature of the world. So what Nibbana is all about is you see this, you understand this nature of the world, where you see that it's not a worthy quest. It's not a some essay, what do you call a valuable experiment which you are doing when you are trying to achieve the ultimate bliss. So your plan is to achieve the ultimate bliss. So the phone you bought, you wanted to keep it, keep that pleasure, keep that blissful sensation to yourself, or you wanted to feel that blissful sensation always, regardless of the time. You wanted to feel it. But after some time, that pleasure was gone. So there's a spectrum here. Or we can see it for a longer period of time, and we can see it right now. We can see it either way. So let's see. Let's take a example here. So we are watching a television series with few seasons and few episodes per season. So we started watching this television series, and when we start to watch the first one, we are putting water to this bucket. And what our ignorance or avidya does is, it always gives the wrong image that this TV series is blissful and it can give you happiness all you wanted in your life. So you started watching it. So now you are addicted to that water level going up. You want it. because it was blissful. But as soon as you stop watching, so if a episode is like 30 minutes, you're just what you are doing is you are just putting water to that bucket for 30 minutes so that you can keep a decent level of water so that you feel pleasure. Think about what happens if there's a power cut. Then that action of putting water would be gone, and the water level will immediately start to go down as there are holes under the bucket. So you would not feel happy. But a person who was not watching TV and who was just sitting there enjoying the calm and quiet environment would not be in that pain. His eyes are not aching. His eyes are not burning because of watching for, let's say, 2 or 3 hours straight. His head is not aching. It is not trying to burst. And that person has no vexation to watch the next episode. But for you, you're trapped. You're trapped in this TV series because your ignorance said that you can achieve bliss by watching this TV series, TV show. Because you show a glimpse of happiness when you are trying to put water into that bucket, since the water level rose. But you didn't see any of the difficulties or the pain that you had to go through in order to achieve that. So the water level goes down when the episode ends. What you will have is a full-blown vexation in your mind until the next episode starts. So without knowing, the film directors and the people in the show business knows what they have to do. So what they do is they end the episode in a climax. So in a crucial point, so that the vexation is to the maximum that the person is bound to watch the next episode. So the person is looking for, or these people, what they are doing is they are binding people's lives to a chain of vexation, to their chain of vexation. Now the people has to continue watching. So when they start to watch the second episode, they will do the same thing. And this will go on until the season ends. And if you have, I don't know whether you have this experience or not, but at an end of a TV series, you feel a very big emptiness in your heart, because now that's over. Now, what am I going to do next would be the question. So that's a big vexation or a deficiency in your mind. So that ignorance itself will tell you you were able to feel pleasurable or blissful when you are watching this TV series, this TV show. Then why won't you go for the other one? which they advertised while the old TV show was going on. So you change, and this goes on. So what you have gathered at the end is your time wasted, and for all of that time, you are opening your eyes, even not stopping to watch the TV show while even you are blinking. So your eyes were aching, and there are millions of things that comes in the way when you start to watch these things, but you cannot stop them, and they always tends to stop us from watching. So we have to do certain things, certain manipulations in order to get that time, allocate that time, so that we can be blissful. So if we could not, like when there's a power cut, or when there's some work we have to do, or some important thing to be done, then that would be always vexatious. But a person who is not watching this kind of things has no such vexation. So the person thinks that this TV show can give him happiness, but in reality, what he has gone through is a total suffering experience, because he has vexation. Now he had to get rid of that vexation. So what he has to do is to try to do something that is watching the TV show, and to watch the TV show comes that's not an easy task. That's very complex when it comes to a when we take a person's life as a whole. He has to earn, he has to allocate time for that, he has to pay his bills, he has to do everything in order to get this going. So to get rid of that vexation only, he has to do hell a lot of things. So after that also, what happens? The moment you start watching, that pleasure is gone. So that's what we said. So let's say these movies are actually images that moves very fast, so that we see moving objects. So it's like 50 hertz per 50 hertz or 50 frames per minute. So 50 images are changed in the TV screen, so that we see moving people, moving objects, and so that's why we call them movies. So let's say we watched the first image and the second image. So likewise, 50 images. So we watched the movie for 1 second. And that 1 second was blissful. You would not be able to measure it, but we know that if we watched it for 1 minute, then we would feel blissful. So even the 1 second would be blissful there. So after watching for 1 minute, even if we changed our view to something else, or let's say there's a power cut and the power goes. Now the power comes back in 10 seconds, but we were in full vexation for that 10 seconds. Now there are ways to rewind it and all. That's right. But those are also being invented in order to get rid of that vexation. People are always trying to get rid of the vexation that is building up, but they always lose because they do not know the reality. That's why, even though now there are cutting edge technology, even there's very high advanced tech, we are not able to, still we are not able to fulfill these 5 senses or 6 organs. So in the moment also, what happens is there's a process of destruction, or we call in Dhamma, we call it Jara Marana. So there's this decaying, which is Jara, and at the end there's destruction or Marana or death. So when we watch for 1 second, we create something, and that's what gives us pleasure. So we create mental images. The images taken from the eyes are given to our mind, and we feel pleasured. And as soon as that builds up in our mind, that ends up in decay and death. I think if you can remember the second sermon we had, we discussed how everything comes to existence in a moment, and when the causes are gone, the effect is gone or the result is gone, so that they end up in Jara Marana, decay and death. They become old, they become changed, become rusty and dusty, and at the end, always ends up in destruction. So that's what happened to this pleasure or bliss as well. If we are trying to generate pleasure from a physical or a object that is created out of causes, that means from an external object, these objects decay and die at the end, or ends up in Jara Marana. So when something ends up in Jara Marana, what happens is that creates a hole of vexation. That's create a big hole, or a deficiency, or a vacuum that needs to be filled. Otherwise, the person would be in pain, in suffering. So what the person would do is, to fill up this vexation, he would have to, we were referring to that person who was watching television, he would have to continue watching. He won't be able to stop in 10 seconds and say that it's enough for me, I have fulfilled my eyes, or the deficiency in my eyes. That's not the case. So you are trying to do this with your 6 senses, changing from one to another throughout these years, throughout a lifetime, and you haven't been able to have any success. So first one is this vexation, which itself is the characteristic of Anicca. So this is what the world is about. So however much you try, you cannot fulfill. Whatever you generate in your mind, thinking that it is blissful, is always vexatious. That's why the habits you develop in your life would come back haunting, asking for more and more, and still you are not able to fulfill them, even with a very advanced technology like today. Still, there are always, there's a problem in this pattern of thinking. So that's vexation, which is anicca. And then comes dukkha. So this whole process is a process of suffering. Your actions, what you have to do. So you have to always try to fill this bucket up. So you have to drag water from a well and you have to put it into the bucket. And this process of filling the bucket is not something blissful. It's always tiring. It's always a suffering experience. So the vexation which comes with the new habit, new idea, or new idea that these things are valuable, that always gives a suffering feeling. Vexation is suffering. So that also adds up to dukkha. And when something you like ends up in jara marana, death and decay, so that's also suffering. So this process itself is suffering. So that's dukkha, characteristic of dukkha. So the third component is anatta. So if you think about it in this way, you would understand that there's nothing essence, nothing of essence in this pattern. So it's always essenceless. There's no essence. There's no value that can be given to this kind of a process. So that's characteristic of anatta. When you understand this anicca, dukkha, and anatta, you can apply. We try to explain it using our eyes. You can apply it to your ears, nose, tongue, body, and your mind. Think about how you try to fulfill your deficiency in your ears or deficiency in listening by listening to various kinds of music tracks, various kinds of songs, but still could not do it. Still the same story. So that's anicca, dukkha, anatta. So when you understand this, you would see that what you do in your usual life and usual practice, everything is connected to fulfilling these six senses, and all your jobs, all your careers, all your future plans and ambitions, everything is to fulfill these six entities which cannot be fulfilled as we discussed right now. So that your life, if you get the real understanding, if you are 100% aware of, if you could comprehend this idea, not from a point of five senses and kind of understanding, but with your wisdom, if you could understand it, then your life would flash in your eyes and you would start to realize that your whole purpose of living until this moment is a problem. It's not valuable. You're doing something which is not valuable. That would be the idea that you get. Then you get a genuine problem here, genuine issue. Now I know that this kind of a way is not what I want to live. This kind of a, what you call, tricked. You have been tricked by your avidya, your ignorance, all this life, and I don't want to get tricked. anymore. But this is the world I have to live in. I cannot change it. I cannot go somewhere else where there are no eyes, where there are no ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, where there's a different kind of a scenario other than what we discussed. So I feel like I am helpless and I have nothing to do about it. So that's what would be the original idea of a person who would get the real idea, real understanding of what Anicca, Dukkha, and Anatta is. So if you understand that, then comes Nibbana. Then comes the salvation, the remedy for the world. So if we try to understand the remedy, which is Nibbana, it's the quite opposite of what we discussed. So when ignorance is known as ignorance, then you don't have ignorance anymore, or at least for that moment. You have wisdom because you know what ignorance is. Because when people don't know what ignorance is, then they are ignorant. But when they know what is ignorance is and what are the components of ignorance, then you are no more ignorant. Then you have wisdom. So it's the quite opposite of ignorance. And that's the conclusion of wisdom is Nibbana. So you have been going after external objects, creating internal objects so that you can enjoy these external objects. So you have created 2 eyes, you created 2 ears, you created a nose, tongue, a body, and a mind so that you can go after these pleasurable items. At least that's what you thought. So that's why you created this kind of a mind and a body out of avidya. So that's if you are not familiar with the concept of samsara, then this would be a bit questionable to you. But you won't be able to understand it fully, what I am telling you right now. Because if you know about the reincarnation process, how are you born again and again due to your avidya or ignorance and your attachment to live, so that would create an energy. This energy would create another lifetime where you have eyes, ears, and so on, these internal organs. And you will still pursue after these external organs, external items, external entities. And at the end, being unable to fulfill these internal organs, your expectation would be at your deathbed is to fulfill these 6 organs, internal organs, so that it would generate an energy, so that you would again generate a body and a mind. And this is a story or a topic for all another day. So I just went through it to make you understand a little bit about what we are dealing with here. So you have created a body and a mind, and this is the purpose of it is to go after images and other external modalities. So when you understand what Nibbana is, you don't want to do that anymore. Just want to get rid of it. Because you know that it is essenceless. That's Anatta. You know it is suffering. That's dukkha, which you don't like. You don't like suffering. And you know it is anicca, and that is vexatious. You don't like that. So you get rid of that idea. Still in the initial stage, in the initial moment when you realize this, what you get is the idea or the comprehension of this. Not that you all the world would be let go. That's not what happens. Still you would go after these things. But now the difference is, you know, with knowing only you pursue after these things, thinking that what am I doing? This is useless. But I feel like doing it because there's vexation building up, and I don't like vexation, and I want to do something to quench this or get rid of this vexation. So I do all these things in order to get rid of the vexation. And that's suffering. And you know that, and still you go after this thing. And day by day, when the wisdom starts to complete and wisdom starts to bloom, then you would get rid of these unnecessary suffering habits one by one until you complete fully to attain Nibbana. So Nibbana is a journey that you fulfill. At the end is the supreme bliss. But even when someone knows about this, or when someone gets the comprehension of what we discussed, he would start to feel Nibbana. Not to its maximum, but to the level he is experiencing it now. So when you are not going after things, when you are not pursuing after things, so let's take that example where a person was not going after the TV series, so that he was not subjected to pain and vexation when there's a power cut. So let's say a person is sitting on a chair and another person sitting next to him is watching this TV, and that person doesn't have any idea about Dhamma, and he is very well attracted or attached to this TV program. The first person doesn't care. He's there, he's sitting for the sake of sitting. He's just there. So he doesn't have that, or he doesn't have to use his eyes to watch. Not like closing your eyes. Watching takes up energy, and it's tiring after some time. Even for a second, watching is tiring compared to not watching. So this goes to the fine details as well. If you think about it, that's how the wisdom broadens and deepens. For initial stages, you can think watching for a 1 hour would be tiring for your eyes. But actually, in reality, even watching for 1 second is tiring. So the first person is not watching. So that part of suffering is not there for him. And he doesn't have a vexation. So he doesn't have to go and watch again and again in the same episode as well as in the next episodes. And that person doesn't need to be bothered about when the power cut is, when other works come, when the schedule changes, or they postpone the episode. That is not a problem for him. So no suffering related to that as well. And at the end, when the episode ends, he doesn't have to wait for 1 week for the other episode so that he can get rid of the vexation. And even at momentarily death and decay of Jara Marana, or even at the end when the whole TV show ends, when the Jara Marana happens there, you don't have a problem. You don't have a problem with parting with the uh, object that you found pleasurable, because he did not found it pleasurable. He did not care. But for the other person, is all the things we mention right now are an issue. He would be in pain. For what? For nothing actually. You thought that there's pleasure, but it's not that there's no pleasure. There is. But there's a good analogy here. So if someone was hit with a bat on the head and he was in pain, and you are asked to rub his head or stroke his head so that he feels blissful, a normal person's head won't be that blissful. He won't feel that blissful when a person strokes his head. But that's a different story for a person who has just got hit by a bat or a baseball bat or something. Let's say it's a gentle hit. So he's in pain, and now you are stroking his head. He feels blissful, he feels good. And you ask whether he feels good, and the person replies yes. And you ask again whether you like to feel it again and again, this blissful sensation. And the person will definitely say yes. And the only way that you can feel this kind of a pleasure is to first hit again with a bat so that he starts with a vexation, and only after that you can ease that vexation, creating a feeling of pleasure. So that if that's the case, if that's the analogy, then that's what we have been doing all these years in our lifetime. Think about it. You are okay without watching a television show, but your friend, he hit on your head with a baseball bat. So you feel suffering. And now you want something to stroke your head so that you feel good. So you started watching it. And that's a wrong mistake. That's a mistake you did. And now you are stuck. And think about the analogy and what happening to you again and again. So then you will understand this. If you think about the analogy alone, you would understand that it's a very, very useless thing to do if someone is doing that. But if you compare the two, you would understand that you are doing the same thing with your life as well. So that's why Nibbana becomes first for a person. So we were referring to that person who was not watching the television show. So if the person is not watching, he's not getting that kind of a painful experience. He's just in peace. And I can tell you that with regarding to watching TV, that this person is in he is experiencing Nibbana to that extent. So that's about non-attachment, getting rid of attachment. So if you are attached, if you think that these things are good, valuable, and they can provide you with pleasure, then that's the pathway of avidya. And if you know the reality, then you would enjoy that peace. You would enjoy that non-complexity. You would enjoy that freedom. And this would go on and on until you don't want to, until you don't want two eyes anymore. Because you don't want them. For what? I don't want them for pleasure. I don't want them for nothing. It's just they are just two balls of meat that gives immeasurable amounts of pain. Why? They need to be cleaned every day. They need to be taken care of every day. If something happens, if just a pin or a sharp object comes near them, we will be screaming in pain. We will be screaming in fear. That's a liability to have. That's a problem to have. Then if you don't have any use with your eyes, then you will not want them. Same thing happens to your ears and the other 6 organs. And ultimately, what you will end up is you won't even want to live, because you would live until your death comes to you, but not willingly. That means you won't live a life that you expect to live, that your expectation is not to be in this world, because it's suffering. All the internal organs are suffering, and going after the external organs are also suffering. And you are there, not that there's no pleasure. That's why we are always going after the world without even knowing the reality. In ignorance, we go after the world. We do it every time, and all the world do it. All the living beings do it, because there's a hidden kind of a trick or a mirage which is called pleasure. It is there. It's not that it's not there. But when you think about rationally, when you think using your wisdom, you would understand it's not what you want. It's not worthy. So at the end, when the idea completes, when you get full comprehension of what nibbana is, you wouldn't want even to live in this kind of a world. So that it says that in literature, Arihat, or the person who completed this kind of understanding, is waiting for his death, just like someone waiting for his salary. In the meantime, he would do good to this world. He would explain this kind of philosophy to everybody else as well, so that they also can experience what he experiences now. And he would walk this earth and doing good for others until all his life ends, so that he would attain Nibbana. That's ultimate Nibbana, where there's no suffering. So with this understanding, it's zero suffering, which is known as bliss here. Not that you are experiencing something out of a physical or a non-physical object. If you are experiencing something out of a physical or a non-physical object, then they will always end up in jara marana, decay and death. So that you will have to part with that, or you will have to be separated with that blissful experience, and that's always suffering. And then they are suffering, and that would be a vexatious feeling. And so there's anicca, and you would always try to grab onto that of blissful experience, so it's tiring. So Anicca Dukkha Anatta, world comes again. So Nibbana is a different kind of a concept where we say that blissful is not having suffering. So for that, you have to get rid of all the causes that creates objects or results, so that no result is being born. Nothing comes out of, or nothing is there. No images, no sounds, no smells, tastes, touches, and thoughts, and also no internal objects: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So all the 12 are non-existent. They are not there. They are not present in Nibbana. We cannot say a place called Nibbana. We cannot say a thing called Nibbana. We just use the word to refer what is Nibbana. Other than that, if someone asks what is there in Nibbana, so you are saying that there's nothing. So that's the case. So if there's nothing and there's no one to experience that nothing also, so it's like, what do you call it? I don't get an English word here. So if I refer to a Sinhala word, it's called Shunyata. So the closest I can get is nothing. So nothing can get Jara Maran, decay and death. And that's how the cycle of endless suffering ends. So that you become non-existent, and there's no one in the non-existing world as well. So there's no being. The being is gone. So I think you understand the concept. That's the extreme end of bliss, and that's supreme bliss. So what we are currently, what we are in is suffering world. So in one end we have the suffering world, and in the other end we have the supreme bliss. So if someone asks, with the understanding, of course, you have the wisdom, if you understand, comprehend this sermon, think and ask yourself that whether there are two ends. In one end you have supreme bliss, and in the other end you have a suffering world. And what would be your priority? Where would you want to go? And that's how the priority of a, what you call a Arya, or a person with the understanding, would change. And that's what Nibbana is about. I think we have been discussing this for about 1.5 and 15 minutes now. So if you have any questions about what we discussed, you can ask.
First of all, Thero, thank you very much for that wonderful explanation. I would think, as you mentioned, we can open the floor for discussion. Since we are a very small group, I would encourage those who are still here with us to ask any questions and utilize the time to your advantage so that you can expand your understanding. With that, I open the floor for others to ask any questions. Feel free to switch on your cameras if you wish to. You don't have to. Either way is fine. As I mentioned to you earlier also, you do not have to worry about having specific Okay, I'm getting a message on the chat. Let me see. Okay, Juman has informed us that she does not have any questions at this point of time. Maybe Ms. Kim, do you have any questions would you like to ask from Thero? Go ahead. You can either type it or you can ask directly your preference. Please go ahead. I can read it out if required. We've been informed that Ms. Kim has some questions. So please feel free to share them with us. The first question is all Vipaka. Silude Vipaka is the question. Ms. Kim, would you like to share the several questions you have in one go so that Thero may combine them all, or would you like the questions to be asked one by one?
I think it's better if we get all the questions together so that it would be a comprehensive answer.
Yes. Okay, she would be one by one.
Okay, no problem. So, okay. So if we think about now answering this question, if it's all Vipaka, the short answer would be no. Not everything is Vipaka. So if everything is Vipaka, then this world would be fixed and you won't be able to do nothing about it. But it's not the case. So what you would generate out of avidya, mainly out of avidya, and let's say you did good things, and this would generate a good energy. So I am simplifying this to a level that we can understand without going for these technical terms and technical detail. So let's say we are doing good things, and doing good things with the aim of living, or with the idea of avidya, that would create an energy, a good energy, a white energy. Let's say it's white. So if you do bad things, let's say immoral things like killing, hurting, and stealing other people's things, robbing, and having unethical relationships, and other things like gambling, and there are various things that we don't find ethical, and there are other things like lying, slandering, using harsh words, using meaningless words, so and other malicious thoughts. Then there are what you call greedy thoughts, and others like wrong and distorted views. So where others would be in trouble of if they try to what you call try to stick onto these kind of views. So there are different kind of unethical ideas and unethical things, unethical words that you can utter out. So if that's the case, then that creates a bad negative energy. So that's not vipaka. The initial, what you did or what you decided to create, is not vipaka. That's what you decided out of avidya. Avidya pacha sankara, it's said in technical terms. So you created that out of your the avidya that forms, or avidya that is that is a result of what do you call the association with the untrue friends, what do you call enemy, what do you call these the asat purusha, or we call them that there are noble friends and the opposite of it. So they are not enemies as such, but there are people who don't know about the reality of the world, so that they give ideas, wrong views about the world, and our avidya grows because of that. the avidya grows, and because of the views of avidya, this energy, good things, if they say good things, then we would tend to do good things. If they say bad things, then we would tend to do bad things. And the energy which is created, good or bad, would come back to us. And that's called vipaka. And when that comes, they come as images, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, and thoughts. So what you receive right now is a result of you doing good. You are listening to Dhamma, the most valuable thing that you can get in this world. So that's a vipaka. That's because you have done some good deeds in your past. Good deeds means you have been paying respect to Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Those are three triple gems. And you have been attaining to these kinds of Dhamma sermons, and you have been having a pleasant mind or a positive mind about the explanations and the people and the noble people who were practicing these kinds of practices. So that creates a positive energy which is stored in your karma bhava. Now that's a technical term. It's, let's say it's a non-physical realm. It's non-physical where the energy gets deposited. It's not the correct, totally 100% correct way of explaining that, but for making it simple, I would say like that. So this would come back to you again, as now you are hearing words, now you are seeing images, so you are getting that energy, the vipaka, as images and sounds right now, and you are hearing it, and now you are creating again more energies. If you understand it, then it becomes another energy where the life, that energy would come back to you again and again, and you will get rid of this world because there are good inputs to you. More and more noble friends will be met by you. More and more good content, Dhamma, and thoughts, Dhamma thoughts would be strike to your mind, and you would start to grow your wisdom. And that part you are doing, not, that's not vipaka, but the initial, what do you call, the images, sounds, and other external things that you meet with your internal objects or eyes, ears, and such. That's vipaka, and that's because what you have created in your past. And that's a simple explanation of what vipaka is, but this is a very broad topic. To tell you the broadness of it, the Supreme Buddha says that when it comes to vipaka, only he and himself only can understand 100% of how the vipaka word works, or how the vipaka works, because it's very complex, very hard to understand. We can understand about the fundamentals of vipaka, how the vipaka works, but when it comes to fully understanding it to 100%, that's not possible for a normal person. For that, you need to become a Supreme Buddha, and that's a very long journey to go, and not an easy journey to go. Very, very hard. And when we have the opportunity to understand this and get rid of the suffering and be end with it, then why would we make this journey a more difficult one? But if that's what you feel, then there's a possibility as well. Not that you should, not that anyone should be stopped from having such views. But if you think about it rationally, when you have the time, you can understand it, and you can get rid of the suffering. That's the easy way. So I think I was able to give you an answer. I don't know whether you understood it fully, but if you have more questions, again, you can.
Yes, if you want. Okay, so she's saying that the current answer is perfectly sufficient for now, and is giving much thanks. You said you have further questions, so please go ahead to share them with us. And Jumana, as you go through, if you have a question, feel free to include that as well, either on text form.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome, Jumana. I think feel free if you have any questions, while I think Kim is typing her questions out, I believe.
Okay, so maybe I could make one quick maybe observation, and it's a sort of question as well. First of all, thank you very much. Really grateful for this introduction and the detailed explanations. It seems to me this is very technical. We use a lot of words, and what does it mean? And indeed, I'm a bit stupid about these things. I don't know if we can access a higher level of higher energy and consciousness without having to go through the technicalities and the mechanics of how this works. Can we do a work of meditation and inner growth through maybe prayers and I don't know through what? You are the masters. But I find this, of course, very interesting because it's very helpful. You detailed the process, how we operate, how our mind works. Yeah, maybe I am lazy.
Yeah, no, what you told is right. So when we come to that part, so there's a stepwise approach to when it comes to this Dhamma discussion. So first you understand what it says, otherwise there's no logic behind it, and you would be just doing what you are asked to do, and you would have to go for help again and again after you have done what you are told to. So let's say you are asked to do this kind of a meditation, and you practiced it, and then after some time you would have to go and ask from the same person, what should I do next? Now I have done what you told me, and what's the next step here? So when it comes to wisdom and Dhamma, you know what you have to do 100% from step 1 to step 100. Everything, you know everything that you have to do, and when you know what you have to do, you just carve your pathway up. You just create your pathway up. There's a practice of meditation as well, and we did not reach there because first we need to get a good base or a good foundation where you can work on after understanding. So when there's a good foundation, you can build a good solid structure out of it. So that's why in the initial stages we did not mention about meditation and going the engineering, mind engineering. Actually, this is mind engineering. So if I go to a small detail of how it works, so let's say now we know what Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta is, and we know what this. I not actually for make a clarification there. These are not actually very technical words. You are just trying to reflect on your own day-to-day life and trying to reflect on your life these are just 3 words, and then the 4th word is Nibbana. Those are the only 4 words that we discussed when it comes to the technical terms, because it would be easier, because now we are what do you call, we are combining a whole new idea to one word through a discussion. And if we can use that word again and again, and if you understand what the word means, then it would be very easy for discussions. That's why these 4 words are essential in the practice of Dhamma. So let's say this what do you call, if we understand, if we go through this first Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta and Nibbana, and then what we are doing is, so what is meditation actually? So someone would say it's the concentration of mind. So we are trying to concentrate our mind to one object. That's what meditation is, not according to Dhamma, not according to this practice we do. So actually in our practice, what we say is concentration, or having the mind to one element, or without going here and there, is a result. So for a result to occur, we need to know the causes, and we have to change the causes, or we have to create the causes in such a way that the result would occur. So why our mind goes here and there? It moves to see objects. So our mind moves here and there so that our mind can look for things using our eyes, and our mind wanders here and there so that our mind can listen to things using our ears, and this goes on until our skin, and our mind wanders in our thoughts looking for good pleasurable things, just like we discussed in the previous example. Just like watching TV, your mind is wandering in that TV show because you think that it's pleasurable. So when you go backwards, when the mind engineering starts, what you see is you start to look at your mind. When you look at your mind, you see that it goes here and there without a stop. When you hear something outside your house, it goes there and you start to think that whether what's happening there, who is, maybe a thief is coming to my house, or maybe our neighbors are fighting. So that's what would start in your mind. So if you hear if you see a light, or a big bright light coming at your windows, you would think that someone is coming, and your mind would start to go in that pathway, in that lane, just like a train which is enrailed, going in that direction, being unable to derail it. So that it's like we call it the train of thoughts. So that's the usual practice. It's very relevant when someone says train of thoughts. That's what happens. So when there's a train, you cannot change the pathway of a train. It has only one path. It goes in that pathway until you find the end. So that's what happens to your mind. So you cannot get the result even if you try, however much you try to get the result, when you don't know the causes that creates this, you are not, and it's very hard when it comes, if you are trying to do this in a normal day-to-day life, or of especially a modern culture. Because if you are going to do that in that way, where you are trying to get the result without thinking about the causes, you'd have to go to a you would have to go to a jungle or a forest where there are no images, no sounds, no smells, tastes, and you are eating just something you get, just like potatoes or other, what do you call, leaves and such, and there are no good touch or anything, so that you won't be able to move, or your mind wouldn't be able to move through these tracks of your train of thoughts would start to reduce day by day until you reach the point where your mind gets concentrated. That's without knowing the causes. So it automatically happens because all the causes get aligned, but temporary. The moment you get out of that jungle and get out of that forest and move to a modern urban area where you see these images, sounds, and other stuff, your mind will again start to go after these things, and your samadhi or concentration would go away. So it's not what we are practicing here. We are thinking about the causes. And when we think about causes, what we do is we understand that our mind is looking for good things. If we are sure, 100% sure that there are no good images outside, we would be closing our eyes. We would stay closed. If we know this should come from a perspective of wisdom. Otherwise, just thinking that there are no good, what do you call, good sounds wouldn't do much. But if you understand it 100% with your wisdom, then your mind wouldn't wander the realm of sound, looking for various kinds of good sounds. So when that happens, and the first what we are practicing in the meditation is we close our eyes and we look at our mind, how it works, and it goes here and there. When it goes and attaches or latches onto something, we think critically with our wisdom, what is there to get latched onto? What is there? What is here in this object that I should find valuable? There's nothing. That now that's where the Anicca, Dukkha, and Anatta comes. That's Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta meditation, or we call it Vipassana meditation. So when Vipassana meditation comes, you think about why, what is there to get attached to? Why am I experiencing so much suffering willingly when I know that there's nothing to get attached to here? So that you will get detached from that train of thought, and it won't stop there. The mind will then again attach onto something else, and you have to repeat the process again and again, and then you will start to realize that your mind is not initially, it moves here and there like this, and when you get detached from this place, the mind will come to its original peaceful place. Oh, no wandering. And then again it will go and attach to somewhere else, and again you do the same thing, and it will come to a halt. And this won't be easy, but when the time passes, if you practice day by day, your mind will start to get released from the attachments you have in your mind. So your mind would be finally be concentrated, and that's a result. And this concentration is what develops, what increases your wisdom. It's like laser. So if you know the story behind laser, it's just a light. It is just light energy. So when we see light coming from a light bulb or a source other than a laser probe. So what happens is they are in different directions. They are in different, what do you call, different patterns and not aligned. So that because of that, there's no power in that light source. But when you laser it up, when you get the same pattern, when you get the same what you call frequency, then it becomes so powerful that it can cut through objects. So that's what will happen to your mind when it's concentrated in such a way with wisdom. Then your wisdom will start to develop and you will start to see what you did not see before. And your attachments will start to drop. And that would increase your bliss, or in other words, the suffering, the level of suffering would go down to a place, finally to a place where even if somebody comes with a knife to stab you, there won't be any mental discomfort attached with that, because you don't care whether you live or not. So that's the extreme end of it. So that's where you reach at the end, when you understand what's vipassana is, what's Dhamma is. So we are reaching there. Initially, what we have to build up is the way of thinking, the way you have to think and way you have to understand how the world works. So after that only, you will be able to practice what you have been understood. And that can be today. I don't know. Because if you have a good sense of understanding, if you have developed wisdom, even you can become Arihat at this point if you have that much of wisdom. But it's very rare that kind of a thing happens in this era, because in the current era, the wisdom of people's wisdom is not that high like the era of Supreme Buddha, where there were a lot of people with a lot of wisdom, where they could understand even with one sermon and fulfill or complete their pathway then and there while listening to the sermon. But that kind of a scenario is very hard to fathom in this kind of a era. But it's possible. Even if you understand it fully, then you can start to practice vipassana from the day one onwards without a problem. So I think I was able to give you an answer. I don't know whether there's any questions regarding that, and we have another question as well. So
thank you.
Yeah.
I think this is quite a generous explanation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jumana. I think with that, okay, I think Ms. Kim has also mentioned that her question was more or less answered by the explanation, but nevertheless, I will read the question that she had placed second. It had asked whether does it feel like a big bang or a big experience when a person becomes sotapanna or has opened the eyes of wisdom. That's the question Kim had placed before. Thero, would you like to quickly touch on it? Though she had said that she has quickly answered.
I think it would be better if I could add something to that question. So when it comes to being sotapanna, so for some people it would be like a big bang, because let's say he attained all arihathood in a second. It can happen. The wisdom can bloom in different ways. So it can fully bloom and fully give you the total picture about the whole world, about the whole way of thinking you had before. So it's like turning 180 degrees backward. So it's a big thing that happens for some people, because if they understand it right then and there fully understands it. But for some people, it's not the case. They have to go through several explanations or sermons to complete their understanding. So if that's the case, then on the first day they would understand that there's something interesting in this kind of a discussion, and they will come back again and listen to another one, and again another one, and with the time their understanding will broaden up to the point that they will start to understand. Because it's like, let's say you are in the ground floor, and Sotapanna is like the third floor. So if someone reaches the third floor in a second, he would definitely and immediately understand that there's a high difference. I have reached a height. Now I am not in the ground floor. He would definitely understand it then and there, right there. So let's say another person is using the stairs to climb up to the third floor, and on the first day he climbed few stairs. On the second day, another few stairs, and on the final day, just 1 or 2 stairs to reach the final floor. So if someone asks from that person, over the time while listening to these sermons, I feel that I am changed. I feel that I have a different view, different aspect of life, or aspect of understanding about this world. But I didn't get it overnight, but it happened somehow. Now I am a different person, that's for sure. But that's what the idea would be for that kind of a person. So it's yes and no to give you a correct answer. For some people, yes, they would feel like that, a total blow to their head when they understand it first time, for the first time. So for another person, it would be a slow journey, and they would still understand that there's something different, and they would understand over the time that their lives have changed for good.
Kim is saying thank you very much for the reply. I would like to invite any others. I think we have also Chandula and Ravindu joining us as well at the moment. So if you have any further questions, we've moved on to the questions half of the session today. So please feel free. Jumana, you can go ahead.
Sorry, I don't have anything. I'm trying to silence my computer.
Sure.
I cannot find it. Every time I'm receiving email, it's ringing, and I apologize. I thought I put myself on mute. I'm so sorry for that.
No problem. If others have questions, feel free. And Kim, if you have any further questions, please put it into the chat box. I will read it out for you. So if we have no further questions for the day, I believe we can round off today's session. And for those who may have missed it, we went into explaining to the basics again about both Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta and the Nibbana side. So also probably address Chandula's question that was posted last time. So what I would encourage is after the discussion is over, I can put the recording so that you may go through it, and we can bring out any further questions in next week's session. Thero, what would you like to do? Would you like to see if they have any further questions, so we round off for the day?
If they don't have any questions regarding today's content, or any question for that matter, if they don't have any, we can go ahead and wind up the session.
Sure. So in that case, Kim, do you have any questions? I think you're also not having. I think considering all of that, Thero, without doing Anumodana per se, since it's a fourth session, could we give a short blessing, maybe even in the Pali or Sinhala? But at the end of the day, I think it will still be quite helpful for those who are here. If that is okay, maybe I could suggest that. And afterwards, everyone can say sadhu, sadhu 3 times, and we can finish off. You need not on the camera, sorry, the mic, but you're welcome to do so if you feel comfortable. Over to you, Thero.
So today, for almost 2 hours, we were practicing, and we were trying to expand our wisdom, listening to Dhamma. So listening to Dhamma according to Buddhist philosophy and according to reality, we know that it's a meritorious deed. So according to what we discussed before as Vipaka, so we are creating a white energy, good energy that would come back to us to fulfill our pathway of completing this Nibbana. So we have generated immeasurable amounts of meritorious deeds today by listening to Dhamma, by thinking and practicing Dhamma in our heads. We were trying to understand and realize what's the reality, what's the real nature of the world. So with that attempt, the energy that was created was immeasurable, and may that energy help us and everyone else, especially the ones who were connected today, to remove all the hindrances and barriers that would cover up the Nibbana pathway or the Eightfold Pathway, which is the ultimate pathway to Nibbana. And may everyone get all the needed Kalyana Mitra or noble friendships, and all the Dhamma knowledge and Dhamma inputs that would help them to develop wisdom and to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Accept this blessing with the sadhukara.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you very much, Thero, for your time, and for everyone, those who have joined us here with us today, and for those who have put forward questions, which makes it much more, the discussions become much more fruitful, everyone, those who are here. While encouraging everyone to again join with us tomorrow, I take this opportunity to again thank Dhammadassi Thero for his valuable time. And with that, we close the session today. Theruvan Saranai Apihamdan. Theruvan Saranai to all.
Theruvan Saranai, everyone.
Saranai.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Theruvan Saranai.